All right. Shalom Israel, Shalom Shalom. This is Brother Roy Allah, and this is my channel Rise of Israel. Lord willing, this could be an edified video through the Spirit. Today, as you can see, the title, we're going to, go through a quick presentation, maybe not quick, but a nice little presentation on who Japheth is according to the scriptures. Many people believe that Japheth is the so-called white man. Some people say Asians, and people under the One West belief system believe that Japheth would be who many would call the Pacific Islanders or the Polynesians, the people of the Isles, right? So on and so forth. But Lord willing, this edifying video. If you do find this video helpful, interesting, like, comment, subscribe, and share it with somebody that you might think would find this as edifying. With that, also I like to bid, a strong shalom everybody out there, and give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. All right, so let's start. So let's read Noah's Ark. It's Genesis 6 and 9, right? Because everybody understands that we all come from the man Noah, and through the loins of Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and that's who populated the whole earth, right? So let's read Genesis 6 and 9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupted, for all flesh was corrupted had corrupted his way upon the earth. The ark prepared. Verse 13, and God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And that's exactly what happened. Let's keep going. Genesis 7 and 1. And the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. So we saw Noah as a righteous man. That's why He saved him, right? Let's keep going. Genesis 8 and 15. And God spake unto Noah, saying, go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. Verse 18, and Noah went forth, and his sons and his wives, and his sons' wives with them. Verse 19, every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth, after their kind, went forth out of the ark. Genesis 9 and 1, and God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. Genesis 10 and 1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. So this is who you would consider, this is who populated the earth, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And unto them come we all. So that's something that we should all consider when, when going through this, going through this lecture and looking at these things. We should all consider these things. So, Lord willing, this edifying, man. Of course, I feel like it could be, and I feel like this is good information. So let's keep going. All right. So there are no end of all the nations. Ecclesiastes 4 and 16. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit. So we all understand that what we call, every group of people, nations of people, they all come from somebody. And there's no end of all the people. I mean, everybody that was here then is still here. Now, obviously, people died, but I'm talking about nation through the loins and the lineage of people. There's no end of the nations. So Ham, Shem, and Japheth, their descendants are on the earth today, and they populated the whole earth. So Japheth, technically speaking, would be 1/3 of the human population. So this is not something that should be going missed, or should be up to any confusion, right? So let's keep going. Where did Japheth and his descendants live? Japheth is usually thought of as the father of the Europeans and the father of the Japhetic race, equating the Japhetic nations to Europeans. He is known to be the ancestors of all Indo-European nations. So the average person may read this and consider, okay, well, everybody that's in Europe right now, they're descendants of Japheth. And that's why a lot of people get confused when they call so-called white people Japhet or Japhites, right? Which, is sadly mistaken, because there's a lot of things that you have to consider in how they took that land, right? The majority of his descendants are situated in northwestern regions like Anatolia and Aegean. However, there are also assumptions that Japheth is the father of the Asians or Mongoloid people, which is obviously incorrect, because the Mongoloids go back to who you would call Moab. When you go into Deuteronomy 23, I think it's around 7 through 10, where the Most High commands them not to let any Moabite come into the congregation of the Lord. And directly after that, he said, shall not a bastard come into the congregation of the Lord, which means a product of incest. And the word for that in the Strong's Concordance is Mongoloid. So we understand that a product of incest, which is called, I forgot what it's called, but a person that's a Mongoloid or looks at a nation, you can see how their face looks. It's the same of an Asian, and that's no disrespect in that regards. But let's keep reading. After what happened to the Tower of Babel, the Japhetic race went to the east of Europe and north of Asia to propagate, right? The Bible phrase that states they migrated to the Isles of the Gentiles is generally thought to be the Greek Isles, but some consider that it refers to the islands in Asia and the Pacific Islands, right? His sons and their people started to multiply in the mountains of Taurus and Amanus. Then they dwelt in the lands of presently known as the Mediterranean, Russia, Asia, and the Americas. A fraction of them stayed in Europe until the conquest of the Shemite tribes that drove them to the northern areas. Soon after, they were forced further to east of Asia when the Shemite tribes invaded and occupied the entire south of Europe. And again, I'm going to have the cited sources at the end of the presentation. Island peoples, right? So we understand that these people are the people of the islands. And we're going to further prove that further on throughout this presentation, early in this presentation. Sons of Japheth, Genesis 10 and 2 through 5. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, and Meshech and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. Verse 5. By these, meaning by these people, by these descendants of Japheth, were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands. So let's just understand this one thing. Let's break down this little phrase in blue that I highlighted in light blue. The isles of the Gentiles. The isles means island, and Gentiles in the Hebrew means goyim, which means nations. So by these were the islands of the nations divided. So by these people, the islands of the nations were divided into. So these people are the people of the islands in their lands, everyone after his tongue and their families and their nations. Let's keep going. Sons of Japheth part 2. And I wanted to, rephrase this because a lot of people hear the Old English and get kind of tripped up on it. So let's read it in the GNT. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras, were the ancestors of the peoples who bear their names. So the people that have those names, those are the descendants of these men. The descendants of Gomer were the people of Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The descendants of Javan were the people of Elisha, Spain, Cyprus, and Rhodes. So these people are the indigenous people to this land. These are the Indo-Europeans of these lands, the people of Japheth, right? They were in bold. We're going bold now. They were the ancestors of the people who live along the coasts and on the islands. So these were the ancestors of the people that we see today who live along the coasts and the islands. That's simple. So the people that live in the coasts and in the islands today, because these are an islanded people, these are the descendants of Japheth, the people who live on the coast and the islands, who are simply known for that. Just look at the word Polynesian. Poly meaning multiple, Nesian meaning islands. These are the descendants of Japheth, living in their different tribes and countries, each group speaking its own language. So, I mean, I kind of, gave it away that I believe it's Japheth earlier and now, but we're going to keep going on to prove it. All right, Isles, H339, Strong's H339, right? So let's see, let's look into this, right? This is the transliteration E, BDB lexicon, coast, island, shore, or region. People of the coast, of the islands or the shores, right? Strong's definition, properly a habitable spot as desirable, dry land, a coast, an island, country, isle, island. This is an island. These are island people, and this is coming from just because I didn't put it. This is coming from Genesis 10 and 2-5, right? And let's look at this. The Indian archipelago is to be understood as I circled in red, and I quoted it right here. According to the Gesenius Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, the Pacific Islands is what was understood. So the Indian archipelago is to be understood. Let's keep going. Let's see more about this Indian archipelago. All right, the Indian archipelago / Malay archipelago, right? Place name, a group of islands in the Indian and Pacific Oceans between Southeast Asia and Australia. The largest group of islands in the world. So if there's a people that's going to identify with this island, wouldn't it be Japheth? Like, we understand the Bible is a book that makes everything proven, obviously. Like when we look at who the children of Israel will be, there's no question about it. Who the children of Israel will be, because these are the people that will be under the curses of Deuteronomy 28. So that's obvious. That's an obvious thing. So people look at these things, and it should bear witness with their spirit. This is obvious. Okay, look, the people. Okay, they're people of the islands. Who the people of the islands? Okay, it looks like those are the people, right? Let's keep reading. Includes over 3,000 Indonesian islands, about 7,000 islands of the Philippines, and sometimes New Guinea, which is not New Guinea as in Africa, but New Guinea as in an island in the Pacific Ocean. Let's read. Polynesia, or the region of many islands. You can look at the photo as I'm reading, but Polynesia, or the region of many islands, is what it's called, many and island, right? Is the name usually given, with more or less limitation, to the numerous groups of islands and some few single islands scattered throughout the Great Pacific Ocean. So the Polynesian, the region of many islands, that's what it means, right? It is what people would look like, what would identify with Japheth, right? And some few islands scattered throughout the Great Pacific Ocean between the eastern shores of Asia and the western shores of America. In its widest signification, the term Polynesia might be understood as embracing, besides the groups hereafter to be mentioned, the various islands, large and small, of the Indian archipelago in one direction, and the vast islands of New Holland or Australia, with its dependency of Van Diemen's Land in another. So, as you can see, these would be considered the Indian archipelago, and that rightly fits, right? These are the islands. Like it's a set place for the people of the isles, right? So let's keep going. Similar cultures. Let's see how similar the cultures are of the ancient people of Europe, or the indigenous people of Europe, to the Polynesians. The Samoan Minoans from ancient Crete. So we all know who the Samoans are, people of the Polynesian islands, Samoan islands, right? And from ancient Crete. Crete is Greece. It was an island in the Mediterranean, right, which would be Europe. The first Polynesians were made up of ancient people of Crete, Slovakia, known to the modern world as the Minoans, right? And the people from the Aegean Sea, notably the people from the islands of Samos. See how Samos, Samoa, they sound very similar because these are the same people. This view is founded on the theological and biblical account of creation and the parallels within the Samoan culture and the ancient traditions which are identical to those of the ancient Minoan civilization, meaning the culture of the Samoans and the culture of those of the ancient Minoans or Etruscans and Minoans are extremely similar. The cultures are almost identical in some aspects, right? So these people would identify with the people indigenous to Europe. As you see to the top right, there's a photo of Samoans or Pacific Islanders, right? A darker complected people. They're a lot darker than what people give them credit for the record. Let's keep reading. Identical artwork. After examining numerous ancient Minoan pottery and frescoes alongside the patterns of traditional Samoan tattooing and the siapo, or tapa clothes, the similarity in design motifs and imagery are incredibly identical in form and style. I mean, these cultures are extremely alike, like it's ridiculous, and I'm gonna prove it. These cultures are exactly alike, right? Let's keep going. Can you tell the difference between these two? Between these four, right? So I'm just gonna give it to you. Two of them go back to the Polynesians or the Samoans, and two of them go back to those of ancient Greece. Which would be which? Comment below if you have time. Pause it, comment below. But I'm about to give the answer away right now. All right, so the ancient Greek tribal markings are those to the left of us. Look at the patterns, and look at the placement of these patterns. These markings, these tattoos aren't a fad thing. These are a cultural thing. Polynesians don't wear these because it's cool. They wear it because that's the culture they grew up in. But it's also the same culture that ancient Greek tribes had. But you don't see Alexander the Great walking around with these type of tribal markings. You don't see images of him having these on. Have you seen any European Greek or Macedonian, what have you, having these type of markings? No statue, no nothing. But because these were a different culture's lifestyle. And I'm gonna show you how different it was, because this was even a cool or popular practice in Macedon, which would be the Europeans, right? But the ancient Europeans had this in their culture, just like the modern Samoans have it in theirs, right? So let's keep going. So no, you can't tell the difference. I'm just gonna give it away because I couldn't, right? All right, similar customs. For a Thracian, to be tattooed is a sign of noble birth, while no tattoo signifies lower status. So I just want to just throw this out there. Follow the similarities between the square to the left and the square to the right. These are both two different cultures, apparently. But let's look at the similarities, how they handled tribal markings, right? So I'm gonna read this again. To the left, this is speaking on those of the ancient Greeks, the Thracians and men like that, or peoples like that. For a Thracian, to be tattooed is a sign of noble birth, while no tattoo signifies lower status. So not having tattoos in this culture signified a lower status, right? One who does not work the earth is most honored. So the person that isn't a tiller of the ground is usually honored. These are the warriors, the people who go out and hunt and fight. These are the men that were more honored, while the tiller of the soil goes unhonored. He who lives by war and raiding is held in the highest honor, right? So let's keep reading. Similarly, raiding was not a prized function of the classical Greek warfare, where the ideals of masculinity focused on the concept of open battle, right? So let's read this one more time. Similarly, raiding was not a prized function of classical Greek warfare, right? where the ideals of masculinity focus on the concept of open battle. Herodotus places tattoos directly in this set of contrast. To the Thracians, they denoted high status. So these ancient Greeks were it was a high thing, or a very popular thing, for a person to have tattoos. So it's you'll be of high status, you have tattoos. But to the Greek, which would be the Macedonians, a low status, because the Macedonians, which are who we would call today the Greeks or the white people, they didn't consider having tattoos at that time as of high status. It was actually a low status in their culture, and you were considered a barbarian. All right, let's read this to the right. Historically, there was no writing in Polynesian culture, so the Polynesians used tattoo art that was full of distinctive signs to express their identity and personality. So they used tattoos as a form of identification, right? But the fun thing about this is them not having a written culture is the same thing that the ancient Greeks had. They didn't have a written culture. They didn't have things that they express themselves in writings or on tablets. No, they express themselves through their through tattooing and things like that, right? So let's keep reading. Tattoos would indicate status. For the Polynesians as well, tattoos would indicate status just like it would for the Thracians, which are ancient Greeks. Nothing changed between the two. Tattoos would indicate status in a hierarchical society, as well as sexual maturity, genealogy, and one's rank within the society. Nearly everyone in ancient Polynesian society was tattooed because it was considered a noble thing to have tattoos. It was considered high up in the society to have these things, right? And again, not like America where you just get tatted anything you want on your body. No, this is something that was very culturally appropriate for these people groups, or for this people group specifically. It was in Tonga and Samoa that the Polynesian tattoo developed a highly refined art. Tongan warriors were tattooed. The same thing. It was something that men did in warfare. The warriors wore tattoos just like they did in ancient Greece, just like I just read to you. They did the same thing in Polynesian cultures. It's something that they both practice. Tongan warriors were tattooed from the waist to the knees with a series of geometrical patterns, mostly consist of repeated triangle motifs, bands, and also areas of solid black. It's the same thing with the ancient Greeks. Linguistic roots and dialects. So let's see how similar are the linguistics and the vocabulary and grammar of both cultures, right? All right, so I have two books up to the top right. You look both of these books up. They're pretty interesting. Well, the one to the left I would say is pretty interesting, right? To be published by an institution like Heidelberg definitely adds to its credibility, right? Here is the presentation of the book as taken from its cover. The language and civilization of Easter Island partially refers to archaic Hellenic sources. In parallel with the over 1,000 ancient Greek linguistic roots that are met in the language of Eastern Island and the relative to it, Polynesian languages, we also meet a big number of ancient Greek grammatic peculiarities. So these are very similar to that of ancient Greek. Just like I read earlier, the language and civilization of Easter Island partially refers to archaic Hellenic sources, Hellenic meaning Greek, right? We also meet a big number of ancient Greek grammatic peculiarities, like noun endings and verbal types, and we're going to look into some of them and comment what you may think. For the main building of Easter Island and Eastern Polynesian, ancient Egyptian and ancient Greek measures units were used. So when they built things in Easter Island in Eastern Polynesia, they used the same measure units of ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, right? Additionally, traditional music and other artistic characteristics of Easter Island, like dresses, etc., appear to be of archaic Greek origin. So the same, even how they dress is of Greek origin, not modern Greek, but archaic, meaning ancient Greek origin. Moreover, it is interesting that the writings of Easter Island have elements from ancient Egypt, Cretan, which is Crete, and Cypriotic writing systems. So the writing systems was even the same, right? Let's keep going. The Maori Aryan roots. These are the Maori to the right. These are a Polynesian people. Again, these people will be considered Polynesian. It's obvious as that, right? If I'm not mistaken, they're closer to Australia, which also are Polynesian people, the indigenous people to those lands whatsoever. But these are the people. So let's keep reading. Let's read. In Maori, these roots are found to consist of one or two consonants and a vowel, like the Aryan roots. If any of you don't know what an Aryan is, Aryan means Indo-European, meaning person indigenous to Europe. It's the same word. Aryan and Indo-European, these are the same, right? And unlike the Semitic, which consists of consonants as the framework with vowels as the changing and formative elements. So these Maori people, they didn't have a similar to those of Semitic, meaning Afro-Asiatic people. They didn't have the same consonant sounds and frameworks as they did to those of the Aryan roots, right? Which most white people cling to, Indo-European, but they're not. You may see an Aryan Brotherhood, Aryan race, whatever they like to say, which is like a white supremacist group. They're not even the real Aryans. The real Aryans are those that are indigenous to the lands of Europe, which aren't white people. Sorry to say it. Let's keep reading. We may conclude, then, that no Semitic tongue has entered into the body of Polynesian dialects. Very interesting. No Semitic tongue, nothing that comes from people of Semitic origin. The dialects don't mix, right? That the vocabulary has been influenced by one or more Aryan tongues seems to be a by no means illogical conclusion. When we examine Polynesian roots, a large proportion of them are the same or almost the same as those common to most Indo-European tongues. A few examples will make the point clear. So I'm going to make this point clear in the next slide. And again, comment if these are very similar vocabulary words or words in two different languages, apparently two different dialects or whatever. Those of the Indo-European tongues and those of Polynesian tongues. Please tell me if they're similar or different. More on linguistic roots and dialects. To take another letter, the Polynesian root mu, to sound, to hum, appearing in the Maori mumu, to hum. The Maori language, mumu means to hum. Polynesian root mu means to sound, to hum, right? To utter is clearly the same as the Aryan mu. The Aryan, which is Indo-European, that's what Aryan means. Indo-European mu. Indigenous people of Europe have this same word, mu, which means to utter a slight suppressed sound. What does it mean to utter a slight suppressed sound? It means to hum. Suppressed, meaning closed or held back or held under, and utter slightly, to kind of do it lightly. That's the same. It means to hum. It's just defined slightly differently, but it's saying the same thing. Appearing in Greek, to mutter. Latin, matire or matir, to mumble. It's mu. That mu word means to mumble. That it's even in Latin, ancient Latin. It's crazy. And musca, a fly, which the sound of a fly makes a somewhat of a humming sound. English, midge. Latin, musere, to mutter. Mugire, to roar. And mumere, to murmur. In English, mourn. It's the same thing. These words these represent Indo-European languages, right? So let's keep going. Maori koko, right? This is the Maori, the word koko. An angle or corner, right, may be placed with Sanskrit, which is an Indo-European people. Sanskrit, kuch, to bend. Koko and corner, and kuch, to bend. It's the same thing, or very similar. Mind you, these two cultures are shown to be thousands of years apart. Multiple thousands of years apart. Modern Polynesian and ancient European. So just look at any other language. Let's look at English, for instance. English, no more than 500, 600 years ago, was completely unrecognizable. Completely. I mean, there was nothing the same. I should have grabbed a video going into the English language and what it sounded like 500, 600 years ago. It was completely nobody would hear it. In the 1400s, nobody would hear the English and be able to understand it. But it'd be English. It'd sound like they were speaking some type of gibberish or whatever. Or let's look at the Hebrew. You have the ancient Hebrew, the Lashwam Kodash. You have Aramaic. Now you have modern Hebrew, which is mixed with Yiddish. Or let's look at Latin. Latin, for instance. And let's look at Spanish or French, which comes from Latin. These are Romance tongues, which come from these languages. They're all different languages, and but they have small similarities, and these aren't even thousands of years apart, as is the Maori and the Sanskrit and Aryan tongues. So it's thousands of years apart, but still you see similarities. Mind you, these words were picked at random. So let's keep going. Number 3, the Maori core, which means broken, with the Sanskrit, which is an Indo-European people, to break a car, to break up. Latin, clades, disaster. So core and car, one means broken and one means to break up. And mind you, these cultures are 2,000 years apart. Sounds very similar to me. I'm pretty sure a Polynesian today could understand an Indo-European much better than an average person that speaks English today will understand that of ancient English 500, 600 years ago. Right? So let's read the 4th one. In Maori, we have the word enin, to blow softly like the wind. Enini or enin, right? And the root ene, to blow or breathe, appears in many words all throughout Polynesian dialects. The same root appears in most Aryan languages, not just one, but many Aryan languages. It is the base of the Greek, the wind, of Sanskrit, enimi. Eni is the root of enimi, which means to breathe. But in Polynesian tongue means to blow. Enimi means to breathe. Eni is the root to enimi. So to blow or breathe is in both same words, right? And it takes a development natural to the Aryan mind, in the Latin animus, the mind, anima, the soul. So and this funny thing about this is wind or breath is the same word as spirit in the Hebrew. It's funny, just thought that would be interesting. But ani, which means soul or mind, to animi, which means to breathe, or go to anin, which means to softly blow in the wind, and the root word of that is ani, which means to blow or breathe. These are the same words. I don't have to keep going. But let's go to the 5th one. These are taken almost at random from the Maori dictionary and indicate a close connection between a large number of the primary roots in the Polynesian tongues and those in the Indo-European. And again, everybody, I'm gonna show you the I'm gonna have everything on the works cited pages. Let's keep going. The toga, right? And everybody understands what a toga is to the top right of the screen. The toga and the iatoga. Let's read the toga. If you had to choose one garment to represent the custom traditions of ancient Rome, the garment would be the toga. It can be seen on statues and paintings of Roman men from the earliest founding of the city of Rome in 753 BCE. It's crazy. Until the collapse of the Roman Empire in 476 CE. The toga has its roots in garments worn by the Etruscans and the Greeks. So the Etruscans, which we just talked about, they wore these togas. And the Greeks and the ancient Greeks did as well. The Greeks had worn a lengthy cloak called the himation. and the Etruscans, early inhabitants of the Italian peninsula, these are the original inhabitants of Italy, of Rome, had adapted this into their tabina, right? In Samoa, a special type of mat, the ia toga, is never used on the floor of a fale, which is a house, but plays an important part in Samoan culture. So you never saw this on the floor. You never saw this on a wall or something. No, this is something that people wore, right? So this is seen in Samoan culture. Ia toga, or fine mats, are the most precious type of mat and represent most of the indigenous forms of wealth for Samoan families. So this is something that people really took seriously. This is a cultural thing. These people took their culture pretty seriously, all right? Ia toga are exchanged and presented at weddings and funerals and at special occasions such as blessings of newly built fale, which is a house, right? Or the opening of a church. At funerals, ia toga are given to the family of the deceased, and gifts of mats and food are given in return. These exchanges display a mutual respect that enforces family ties. On other occasions, ia toga may be worn as a ceremonial garment around the waist. So the ia toga and the toga are both worn in both cultures. The ia toga is worn usually during ceremonies. So these are both two different things. These are both two different cultures, both the same type of apparel. So let's keep going. The toga and the ia toga, right? So the true Europeans. So now we're going to get into more about who the actual Europeans are. The migration of the Hawaiians. Let's see what this is talking about. The origin of the Polynesian race has been a subject for discovery and rediscovery. The older theory of Malay origin, these are the people of the Malay Islands, as set forth in the early encyclopedias, is now recognized as untenable. The Malays followed the Polynesians rather than preceded them. So the Polynesians were first and the Malays followed them. These are the same people. The comparative study of Polynesian legends leads almost irresistibly to the conclusion that the Polynesians were Aryans. An Aryan? An Aryan isn't Indo-European. So Polynesians were considered Aryans. And again, people, I'm going to have the works cited page at the end so you can look all this stuff up. Coming at least from India to Malaysia and possibly from Arabia. That's where everybody comes from, right? As Fernando of Hawaii so earnestly argues, it is now accepted that the Polynesians did not originate from Malay parentage and that they did occupy for an indefinite period the region around the Sunda Straits from Java to the Molucca Islands. These are Pacific Islands. The same Pacific Islands that is to be considered the islands of the Gentiles, or the islands of the nations, given to Japheth, and also that the greater portion of the Polynesians were driven out from this region and scattered over the Pacific in the early part of the Christian era. So you see that how the Hawaiians got to where they are, and the history behind how they got there, because people say they come from Europe. That's what they say, right? So let's keep going. That's what sources say. That's what study and history says, and most importantly, that's what the Bible says. Who are the real Aryans? So again, if you look at the top right, people consider themselves, the white supremacist, your modern day doctor or police officer or firefighter. They probably have this tattoo in their body. They're probably a part of the Aryan Brotherhood. Who knows, right? Aryan name originally given to a people who were said to speak an archaic Indo-European language. We just went through a couple archaic Indo-European languages like Sanskrit. That's an archaic Indo-European language, which is very similar to that of the modern Polynesian people, the Maori tribe, or the Maori people. They speak the same language. But the Aryan is a name given to the people that originally inhabit in Europe, right? And who were thought to have settled in prehistoric times in ancient Iran. So in prehistoric times, The people of the Aryan people were considered to have lived in Iran, right? Which would be ancient Media, Persia or what have you, and the northern India subcontinent. In the 19th century, Aryan was used as a synonym for Indo-European. So Aryan is the same as Indo-European. I wasn't joking when I said it earlier. And also, more restrictively, to refer to Indo-Iranian languages. It is now used in linguistics only in the sense of the term Indo-Aryan languages. That's it. A branch of the larger Indo-European language family, right? So Indo-Aryan languages is the same as Indo-European. Media, ancient country of the northwestern Iran. Understand where we're going to. Media. Why you at Media is a country is what it is what we would call when you look at the Medes and the Persians, they were a very strong empire at a point in time that lived in the land of modern day Iran. Right? So right? Generally corresponding to the modern regions of Azerbaijan, Kurdistan, and parts of Kermanshah. Media first appears in the text of the Assyrian king Shalmaneser III from 858 BC to 824 BC, in which peoples of the land of Madai are recorded. The inhabitants came to be known as the Medes. So the Medes are the people that lived in this land, right? So let's keep going. So the Medes would be considered Aryan. If many of you may not believe it, let's see if you believe it later. King Darius of the Medes, like I said, this is an empire. These are a group of people, and King Darius was a representative of them, and he's going to be a representation of them today, right? From the word H4074, meaning Madai or Madai, like we just read earlier. It's a transliteration, Madai or Madai or Madai. Mede and Madai are the same word. Yes, if you don't believe me, just look up H4074. These are the same people. This is the same word. Daniel 11:1. As I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Right? And then Genesis 10:2. The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog and Madai and Javan and Tubal and Meshach and Tyrus. These are the same. It's the same word. These are the same people. Mede and Madai, although it sounds different in English, it's the same people. And that's like no jokes about it. These are the same people, right? And if you look at these two photos to the right, neither of them look like white people. These both are photos of King Darius, of the Medes, and if you can see, it looks like he has some type of woolly textured beard and braids. If you ask me, he doesn't looks nothing like a modern Aryan European who would consider himself an Aryan. Let's keep going though. Just look good at these two photos though. This is the representation of the Medes. These obviously like a darker complected people or thicker haired people, right? Let's keep going. The Medes were Aryans. While they referred to themselves as Aryan, right? So they must be Aryans. Others called them the Medes, people of Madai, a region in the northwestern portions of present-day Iran, roughly the areas of present-day Kurdistan, Hamadan, and Tehran, which ancient Greek sources refer to as a Media or Mede. It is now commonly accepted that so-called Median Empire was not the direct predecessor of the Achaemenid Persia, meaning, of course, they were not Persians. Persians are not Medes. The Persians are not Japhetic people. The Persians would come from Elam, the Elamites. These would be Shemitic people, not Japhetic, not Hamitic. These would be Shemitic people. So the Achaemenid, the Persians, will go back to Babylonians as well as Elamites, right? Or same. They would have the same people group, but not the Medians. The Medians go back to Madai, which is the Japhetic people. Let's keep reading. For a Babylonian, as for a Greek or an Egyptian, the generic ethnic term Mede may have also included the Persians, right? So sometimes people consider them the same people because their empire was the same. But the Median got mixed together into the Persians, and the Persians took over, as you see in Daniel 7 and 8, right? Of the two, the Medes were the more widespread and important group. At a point in time, they were. The Medes occupied the vast upland of Iran in historic times. Though they were not the original inhabitants, they were the successors of a prehistoric population. They would also be of Aryan stock, meaning these people are Aryans. And the Median Empire seems to be the result of the earliest attempt on the part of the Aryans to found a great conquering monarchy. So this is all you're going to find about Indo-European people conquering and ruling. This is it. You're not going to find anything really too great about them, at least in the scriptures you're not. You know what I'm saying? You can find things about the Etruscans and Minoans and the Scythian Indians, but a lot of these people were nomadic, which explains why they didn't stay in Europe. Let's keep going. Clearing up some confusion. So let's clear up even more confusion than we've already cleared up. Let's keep going. The first Macedonians were not Greek. Hate to break it to anybody that's a Greek or who would be called a Greek of European descent. The original Greeks or the original Macedonians were not the same people as the original Greeks. The original Greeks were a different group of people. So let's read. The first Macedonians were not Greek. The ancient Greek, Roman, and Jewish historians, geographers, and orators speak of the Macedonians as a distinct nation. They were different, separate from the Greek, Thracian, and Illyrian neighbors. They are clear that Macedonia was never part of Greece, and that the Macedonians conquered Greece, Thrace, and Illyria, and kept the Greeks, Thracians, and Illyrians enslaved. So these Macedonians, they were not Greeks, but they enslaved the Greeks. The Macedonians were not the same as the Greeks, but they enslaved them though. They put them into captivity, right? Let's keep reading. Until Rome defeated the Macedonian armies and turned the country into its first province in 168 BC. So the Greeks ruled the whole world for a period of time. They conquered the Macedonians ruled the whole world for a time when they conquered the Greeks, the Thracians, and the Illyrians, until Rome came in 168 BC and beat them in battle, and they became a Roman province. The assertion of those modern historians that propagate the Macedonians were Greeks which have united Greece is absurd and is completely unsupported by the words of the ancients who clearly considered Greece subjected by the Macedonian foreigners. Oh, so it says the people of Macedon were foreigners. I mean, these people weren't the same as the Greeks. They were foreign. They were from some other land. Edom, maybe? Of course. Yes, they would come from Edom. That's what the scripture says, at least, and we're going to prove it. The Macedonians garrisoned the Greek cities, like the Thracians and Illyrian cities, to enforce their occupation, and later used the Greeks along with equal number of the Thracians and Illyrians for the conquest of Persia. So they used these people to fight Persia, but we're going to see how it actually turned out for them, right? Let's keep reading to the top right. The Greeks were still at war with the Macedonians post-conquest. So although the Macedonians conquered the Greeks, there was still war between the two. Let's read. Despite all, the Greeks never stopped fighting the Macedonians. While Alexander was conquering Persia with the 25 to 30,000 Macedonians, more than 50,000 Greeks actually fought on the side of the Persians against the Macedonians. So this is kind of mind-blowing, right? So you tell me the Greeks fought the Macedonians, but I thought the Macedonians were Greek. No, they weren't. Because when people look at a certain land, they consider all the people as the same, which is ridiculous. The same way that how white people look at black people as Africans, where every African is the same. I talked to an African the other day. He said that all Africans aren't the same. In fact, they're just as racist as people are in the Americas. Meaning they don't look at each other as the same. But let you have a European mind, a mentality, or Western philosophical mentality or outlook on or philosophy on life, You'll think that just because they live in that certain land that they're all the same. No, they're not. Matter of fact, they were actually at war against each other. And the Macedonians, which are considered foreigners, fought and conquered the ancient people of the land of Greece, and then tried to make them fight against the Persians. But these people that were indigenous to this land fought with the Persians against these Macedonians, because these Macedonians weren't supposed to be there in the first place. That's just what the history says, and that's what the Bible says. Keep going. Alexander never considered himself Greek. The Macedonians had their own language. I mean, people didn't know that, it's a Macedonian tongue. People had their own language. What is for certain is that Alexander spoke Macedonian with his own Macedonian troops and used Greek in addressing the Asians and Greeks. Because of trade, and because Greece was on an island, they made a lot of wealth through trade. The same thing with the people of Tyre and Zidon, the Phoenicians. They made a lot of trade, so Greek became the lingua franca at that time and for many years to come. After all, the Macedonians were his kinsmen, precisely the way he calls them, not the Greeks. So he never called the Greeks his kinsmen, but he called the Macedonians his kinsmen. All these sources, both ancient and modern, specifically refer to Macedonian as a language and not a dialect of Greek. Meaning Macedonian was a language. It was something that people spoke completely. It was a different language, right? It's not a dialect of Greek. It doesn't come from Greek. It's its own language. And Alexander himself specifically calls the Macedonian our native tongue. So not only was the Macedonians different from the Greeks, but the Macedonian language was different from the Greek language. So there's no break off of which. There's no, I was once Greek, now I'm Macedonian. Now, no, Macedonians were specifically a different people group. Not the same at all from the Greeks. These are not the same people whatsoever, and that's what the sources say. All right? The conclusion is thus complete. The ancient Macedonian was a separate Indo-European language, different from ancient Greek, just like the Macedonians were a separate nation different from the ancient Greek nation. So I find it funny how they call it Indo-European, but previously they called them foreigners. These are foreigners to Europe, just like the Macedonians were a separate nation from the different from the ancient Greek nation. And the claim that Macedonian was a dialect of Greek and that Macedonians were Greeks, a claim that today is supported only by the modern Greeks and only out of a political reason, is absurd and ridiculous. It's crazy, man. But again, this is going to be up. The works cited page is going to be at the end, so you can look up all this stuff on your own. Trust me, you want to. Macedonians and Greeks were enemies. I mean, not that you couldn't prove it in the previous slide, but let's keep on proving it now. The Battle of Chaeronea. The Battle of Chaeronea took place in 338 BC on an early August morning outside the town of Chaeronea. Sorry if I'm saying the word wrong. I think that's how you say it right. Although for centuries the cities of Athens and Sparta dominated Greece, politically and militarily and economically, the Battle of Chaeronea, one of the most renowned of all Greek battles, only involved one of the other cities. Athens combined forces with the Thebes to meet the rising power of Macedon in a fight that would change history. Wait, so Athens? Wait, I thought Athens was Greek. I thought that's like where white people know. Athens combined force with Thebes to meet the rising power of Macedon in a fight that would change history. So these people were not the same, right? So let's keep reading. The rise of Macedon and the fall of Greece. Understand this one thing before I read. The rise of the Macedonians simply equates to the fall of the Greeks. As crazy as that may sound, that's the truth. Since the time of Homer, the concept of arete and its emphasis on strength and courage symbolized the Greeks in battle. However, in the 4th century BCE, a new threat appeared to challenge the dominance of the city-states to the south, when Macedon, previously viewed as a land of barbarians. Wow. So these people were previously considered barbarians, base people. If that's not what you find in the book of Job, I don't know what it is. These are considered a base people, right? Came under the shrewd leadership of Philip II, a man who would completely reshape the Macedonian army. I mean, that's exactly what happened. They came out of a poor or impoverished state to a high state. I'm just gonna grab this and just gonna grab this real quick. I know this isn't part of the lecture, but we're just gonna keep going. We're just gonna read this because that's exactly what it says in the scriptures. All right. Watch this. But they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to set with the dogs of my flock. I mean, in these people group, you wouldn't have disdained, you wouldn't even put him as a dog of your flock, right? Yea, whereunto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished. For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness, in former time desolate and waste. I mean, these people flew into the wilderness. Who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth among men. They cried after them as after a thief. I mean, these people were outcasts. These were considered barbarians, right? To dwell in the clefts of the rocks, in the caves of the earth, and in the rocks. And if you look at where Edom is, the word for it is clefts of the rocks. They call it the clefts of the rocks, right? Among the bushes they brayed. A bray is what you hear a donkey sound. That same sound that donkey sounds is the same sound that these people made. Under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. I mean, these same people are viler than the earth. And it doesn't say that in First Maccabees that once they became into power, wickedness increased. I mean, that's what the scripture says, right? And now I am their song, yea, I am their byword. They abhor me, they flee far from me, and spare not to spit in my face. And that's exactly what what life looked like for the inhabitants of ancient Macedon and Greece. So let's keep going. He would prove this new military might at the Battle of Chaeronea. The Macedonian victory of Chaeronea would put Greece into what historian G. McLean Rogers describes as a deep sleep, both politically and militarily. It would never again regain supremacy in the Mediterranean. So the ancient Greece, and since then, and the rest is history, and that's how it was. So let's keep going. Two separate cultures. These people were two complete separate cultures. Those of the indigenous people of Europe and those of that conquered them. The Etruscans. Did black Etruscans establish Rome? Mythology tells us that Rome was founded by the twins Romulus and Remus, right? Orphans who spent their childhood sucking a wild wolf, which is, it's a lie if you believe it. It's just like you can believe it, but it's a complete lie. That's never even happened. But evidence suggests that the city may have been established by the Etruscans. Of course, that's what history says, right? For example, some of the structures of ancient Rome predate the presence of the Romans and appear to be similar to the building practices of the Etruscans. I mean, the Etruscans, they were the original people of Italy, and the Romans came and took it, right? Such as building their homes and sides of cliffs. Rome was built on a series of hills, beginning with the Palatine Hill. It is entirely plausible that ancient Romans were dark-skinned people long before the influx of white-skinned Caucasians. Again, I'm going to have this up in the works cited page. Etruscan art. A number of ancient works of art remain from the time of the Etruscans, many of which depict dark-skinned people. The Romans, who later took over Etruscan cities, claimed the mosaics, statues, and paintings of black people were all actually depictions of black slaves, but it seems unlikely that their slaves would have a favorite artistic subject matter of Etruscan artists. Add to that the fact that many of the images show the dark-skinned people in positions of power, and we have a bounty of evidence that the Etruscans were, in fact, black. These are dark-skinned people. I wouldn't call them black people, as in those of the Americas. No, because they're not our forefathers. These are who you call Polynesian. These are the indigenous Europeans. And I showed you the picture of the indigenous of Polynesians earlier. That they really are dark-skinned people. Literally, just look up dark-skinned Polynesians. Every culture besides white people are dark-skinned. They all have a dark-skinned people group. I mean, it's as simple as that. And right here you have the Attic Kayathus Amphora with warrior from the Etruscan civilization, 6th, 5th century BC. Source photo by Diga Augustini, Getty Images. Let's keep going. Clear distinction between both cultures again, right? Most archaeologists, let me grab to the left of us. We have the Etruscan terracotta, 400 to 300 BC. And at the exact same time period that this sculpture was made, the same of Alexander the Great, the Hellenistic Alexander the Great in Hymnation, after an original by Lysippos, late 4th and 3rd century BCE. Two different cultures. Same region though. Roughly the same region, but two different type of archaeological findings. They didn't even look like the same person made them. Right? So let's read what it says in the middle. Most archaeologists agree that the archaeological culture manifest as a set of artifacts represents a social group. So the archaeologists, most archaeologists, they agree that the archaeology found in archaeology, right, in certain regions, it represents a social group or a people. So if you're looking at the Etruscans or a photo by the Etruscans or archaeology or a statue by the Etruscans, and then looking at a statue by the Greeks or the Macedonians, an archaeologist would consider these two artifacts as two complete different social groups. These wouldn't be the same, right? It is the nature of that group and its relationship to the ethnologist's culture that is the point of contention. So again, the fact that these two are two completely different archaeological findings show these are two completely different people groups. Ancient Etruscan art. And these are three ancient Etruscan arts in what we would call 500 BC to 5th century BC. These are Etruscans, and none of them look white at all. You look at the one to the left, dark skin. Look at the one to the middle, dark skin with woolly beard. Look at the one to the right of us, dark skin with woolly beard. Same people group, different archaeology than those that you see in Rome and Italy. Those statues, these aren't even the same statues. A different person made these. Somebody that wasn't of Macedonian or Roman descent made these, and clearly these people aren't white. So this is ancient Etruscan art. Let's keep going. The fate of the Etruscans. Etruscan, member of an ancient people group of Etruria, Italy, between the Tiber and Arno rivers, west and south of the Apennines, whose urban civilization reached its height in the 6th century BCE. I mean, that was the best that they had, right? Many features of Etruscan culture were adopted by the Romans, stolen by the Romans, not adopted, stolen, their successors to power in the peninsula. Let's keep reading. The first known superpower of the Western Mediterranean, in the words of Live Sciences Ben Turner, the Etruscans thrived for centuries, only to be conquered by the Romans in the 3rd century BCE and fully assimilated into the Roman Republic. So these people did as well as they did just to be conquered by the Roman Republic. It's unfortunate for them, but I mean, that's the history of it. The conquest of Hispania. Hispania, Spain, Iberian Peninsula is the same thing. But one thing, remember that the Romans conquered, right? So look at Spain now. Look at a Spaniard. Think of a white boy. You don't think of anybody dark, right? So let's look at Tarshish, from the Strong's Concordance, Tarshish H8659. Tarshish, right? Root word etymology probably the same as H8658 as the region of the stone or the reverse. Tarshish means yellow jasper in the BDB lexicon. Son of Javan, that's Tarshish. We read it earlier, right? Some people say a Benjamite, but that, it comes from a man, obviously. Same word, Hebrew, things like that. One wise men close to the king of Ahasuerus, Persian. Again, these are talking about men. But let's read the fourth one. A city of the Phoenicians in a distinct part of the Mediterranean Sea, to which the prophet Jonah was trying to flee to. So remember the book of Jonah, trying to flee from the Most High, hopped on a boat and fell into the river and fell into the ocean and got eaten by a whale. He was rushing to Spain, right? Let's keep reading. Sites unknown, but perhaps in Cyprus or Spain, and it was not Cyprus. Cyprus would be considered Kittim or another one if I'm not mistaken. But let's keep going. Tarshish was an ancient city located in modern-day southern Spain, right? Due to North Gibraltar. Throughout the Bible, Tarshish, the word itself used in different contexts, appears many times in the Bible in the context of the city. However, Tarshish is both the city or perhaps city-state where Jonah made a concerted attempt to flee, where Solomon had a trade agreement. So Tarshish is Spain. And when I read it in the GNT, the word for Tarshish was Spain earlier in this presentation, right? It's what you would call Spania, Spain, Tarshish, right? Phoenicians are Canaanites, because earlier in my last one, I read how it says a city of the Phoenicians, right here. This is a city of the Phoenicians, right? These are where the Phoenicians stayed. The Phoenicians are Canaanites, right? But they didn't originally stay there. They migrated. But we're gonna read that. Phoenicians are Canaanites, just so you didn't know that. Phoenicia. Let's read Phoenicia, Acts 21:2, and Phoenice 11:19 and 15:3. An ancient country on the east coast of the Mediterranean. Its two main cities were Tyre and Zidon. The name is applied, right, to a strip of sea coast stretching from 120 miles north from the Mount Carmel in what is now Lebanon and Syria. Exact definition of boundaries is not possible for the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were associated with their cities rather than with their hinterland, after the fashion of the Greek colonies. It can be said, however, that the North Phoenicia never extended beyond Arvad or Arwados on the modern island of Ruad, north of Zidon. The Semitic name for the land was Canaan, a name of doubtful significance. The name Phoenicia possibly derives from a Greek word meaning dark red. But if so, it is unclear whether the Phoenicians were so designated because of their purple industry or their dark skin, because they were dark-skinned people, just like the Israelites were, or their copper trade or their date palms. The latter is another meaning. Okay, let's keep going. Right, so now you have to the right of us, you have the picture of Christ casting off the Canaanite woman. Now, we all know that everybody in this picture was black, because it just said previously the Phoenicians were dark-skinned people and the Israelites are black. It makes no sense to make the Israelites white people and that be God's chosen, or Christ, God's only begotten son, being given a skin condition that was a curse unto a woman named Miriam for talking to her brother, talking about her brother Moses for having an Ethiopian wife. That's a cursed thing. It's something that would happen to people. It's something that Christ fixed. It's actually funny that people say that. A man with leprosy came to Christ, and Christ cured him of his leprosy. But Christ himself had leprosy, which is ridiculous. Leprosy meaning white-skinned, or skin that lack of melanated skin. You should consider that. But let's read Mark 7:26. The woman was a Greek. It's a Greek woman, a Syro-Phoenician by nation, meaning this woman is a Syro-Phoenician, meaning Syrian Phoenician by nation. She lived in that area of Tyre and Zidon, like it said earlier, right? So she's a Phoenician woman. She's a Canaanite, right? And she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter, which he calls her a dog, but not her daughter, but her. Matthew 15:21. Then Jesus went thence and departed into the coast of Tyre and Zidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan. I thought she was a Greek. No, she's a Syrophoenician, which is a Canaanite. Came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. So, and mind you, the woman was a Greek, because just like the Greeks conquered or played a big role in destroying Israel and conquering Israel and making them be assimilated over into Greek culture, did the same thing for Canaan too, and many other nations. So many other people were looked at as Greeks as well, right? So let's keep reading. Next slide. The Phoenicians, lords of the Mediterranean. The Phoenicians built the vessels that came to be known as the ships of Tarshish, right? The Phoenicians had already become expert seamen about 1,000 years before the time of Christ. Their homeland was a narrow strip of coast that more or less corresponded to modern-day Lebanon. Other nations occupied the land to the north, east, and south. To the west lay the vast Mediterranean Sea. To gain wealth, the Phoenicians looked at the sea. The Phoenician seamen gradually built a thriving merchant fleet. As profits grew and technology advanced, they constructed larger ships that could handle longer voyages. After reaching Cyprus, wait. So these people lived in Tarshish, right? But they're going to Cyprus, but Cyprus is Tarshish. I mean, it's not. I'm joking. It can't be. They can't be going to Cyprus but live in Tarshish. But Cyprus be Tarshish. No. So let's keep reading. After reaching Cyprus, Sardinia, and the Balearic Islands, the Phoenicians followed the North African coastline in a western direction until they reached Spain. So these people went to Spain, which is Tarshish. So let's keep going. Hannibal Barca was a Carthaginian general who was considered to be one of the great military leaders in history. If you wonder why I'm talking about, why I'm looking up Hannibal, which he fought in the Punic Wars, you're about to see why. Hannibal was born in 183 BCE and lived during a time of great political and military strife. Carthage was a large and important Phoenician city-state in northern Africa. So Carthage, the Carthaginian, these are Phoenician people. These are Canaanites. So Carthage was a large and important Phoenician city-state in northern Africa, which was often at odds with the Greek and Roman empires. And you see how that went, right? The great Carthaginian was born in a city founded by Phoenicians, from Tyre, led by Dido Elisa, sister of King Pygmalion, and great niece of Jezebel, the wife of Ahab, king of Israel. In short, the Carthaginians were Phoenicians, that is, northwest Semites, probably Canaanites, and of the same stock and almost the same language as the Hebrews. So they're not the same stock as the Hebrews, but they spoke the same language. You see that, and I think it's Isaiah 19, where it says that the Israelites would speak the language of Canaan in the land of their captivity, which is the Hebrew. Again, the Carthaginians are Canaanites, but they lived in Spain, right? So it's the dark-skinned people that also lived in Spain. The Romans rebounded, however, driving the Carthaginians out of Spain and launching an invasion of North Africa. So I go here to show you that that white people didn't originally inhabit this land. Darker skinned people inhabited this land. Like I told you, earlier the Phoenicians did a lot of business with those of the Etruscans and the other people of the islands. Right. Let's keep going. Roman conquest of Spain and Hispania. The arrival of the Romans in Iberia, which is Spain, in 219 to 8 BC was no accident. They landed there as a military force, determined to defeat their rivals, the Carthaginians, from whom they had already conquered the islands of Sicily, Corsica, and Sardinia. The Carthaginians were already well established in the Iberian Peninsula, and as long as they controlled it, they were a threat to Roman expansion. The war in Iberia lasted some 12 years, after which Carthage was finished as a Mediterranean power. The Romans killed everybody, for the record. They killed everybody. They destroyed everybody in that land. And that's the power that the Most High gave them, to have a power with the sword. The Romans claimed to be liberators of the tribes under the Carthaginian dominance. Same thing white people always do. They claim to be liberators. Like that propaganda they've always used. They use the same propaganda for slavery, right? Saying that it's good that black people be put in slavery because they had nothing else better to do. They soon realized the economic potential of the territory and the principle of liberating the natives from the Carthaginian overlords was soon replaced by the permanent by that of permanent residence. So, the Romans, which are white people, which live there today, I mean, those are the permanent residents as we see today. Those are the people that live there now, right? First Maccabees 8:1. Now Judas had heard of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them. First Maccabees 8:2. And that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts, which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute. The Galatians would be the French, Gaul, right? So let's keep going. First Maccabees 8:3. And when they had done, and what they had done in the country of Spain, what they had did to Carthage, to the Carthaginians, for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there. So, it's even documented in First Maccabees. How Spain became what it is today. It came that way by conquest. Let's keep going. The Edomite connection to Europe. So we've just went through a lot of information proving that Japheth comes from, or Japheth is the same people as the modern day Polynesians. And now we're going to prove more about how the Edomite got to where the Edomite is at today, right, all over the world. So lineage of Esau to Macedon. The Macedonians, the foreigners of Greece, the foreigners of Europe, the people in which the Greeks and the Thracians and the Illyrians and the Persians and the Medes and the Etruscans and Minoans, the people in which these people hated. How did they get there? Or who did they come from? Since they're foreigners to that land, let's see. Genesis 36:12. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son. So this woman is the wife of Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. So the grandson of Esau is Amalek. Catch on to this. I highlighted everything you should catch on to, right? These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. So Eliphaz, the son of Adah, Esau's wife, the son of Esau, and Eliphaz's son Amalek is the grandson of Esau, right? Numbers 24:20. And when he looked on Amalek, he stood up, he took up this parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. So these people are considered the first of the nations, right? But their latter end is that they be destroyed, that they perish forever. So a specific tribe or specific people of Esau is to be perished forever. But it says the same thing in Obadiah 1:18, that there should be no more remaining of the house of Esau, which we're going to read later, coincidentally, right? 1 Samuel 15:8. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, so Agag, the king of Amalek, which is Edom, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. Because the Most High commanded Saul to do so. That's what Saul was supposed to kill all the Amalekites, but he didn't kill off Agag, King Agag, right? So let's keep going. Again, this is all connecting. So Agag, the king of Amalek, right? Because he's an Amalekite, but his name is Agag, right? So let's keep going. Esther 3:10. And the king took up his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Amminadab, the Agagite. So the Agagite, the man Ammon, the son of Amminadab, the Agagite, is a descendant of Agag, which is descendant of Amalek, which is descendant of Esau. So these are all Edomites. the Jews' enemy. And how obvious is that? The Agagite is the Jews' enemy. So let's keep reading. The editions of Esther, which is found in the King James Version Apocrypha, because we all know that the editions of Esther, that Esther stops at chapter 10, verse 4, and it doesn't go any further, but it picks up on the editions of Esther. But why did they take the editions of Esther out? Because of scriptures like this. Editions of Esther 16 and 10. For Ammon, a Macedonian, so it calls Ammon a Macedonian this time. Not the Agagite, it calls him a Macedonian, the son of Amminadab. So wait. So Ammon, the son of Amminadab, the Agagite, is Ammon, the son of Amminadab, the Macedonian. These are the same people. Being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, and a stranger received of us. So, this is Esther speaking how this man is a stranger from the Persian blood. He has nothing to do with the Persians. He's a Macedonian. And she's explaining that he tried to overthrow the Persians. And I'm just going to grab that real quick, just so we understand that this man was by no means a Persian or of any support to the Persian army. Editions of Esther 12, 16, and the son of Amminadab, okay. Salakia, but I must grab this, right? Okay, Salakia, bear with me. The Jews may freely live in their own laws. That's okay, Jews to the okay. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're gonna read editions of Esther 16 and 13. Having by manifold and cunning deceits sought of us the destruction, as well of Mordecai, which is Mordecai, who saved our life, and continually procured our good, as also blameless Esther, partaker of our kingdom, with their whole nation. For by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends, to have translated the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians. So his purpose of doing this was to translate the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians. He wanted to make their ties weaker. He wanted to kill off the Jews to make the Persians' tie weaker so that they can be conquered by the Macedonians, which, if you read the next verse, happened. First Maccabees 1:1. It happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, so Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chetam, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes. So they destroyed the Persians and Medes. But that's what Ammon, the son of Amminadab, wanted. He wanted him to do that. Right? That he reigned in the stead first over Greece. So he's the first person to reign over the entirety of Greece, because Greece used to be city-states. So let's look through this again. You have look at everything I had highlighted in red, right, for the color of Esau. Esau, Amalek, Agag, the king of the Amalekites, descendant of Agag, the descendant of Amalek. Ammon, the son of Amminadab, the Agagite. Ammon, a Macedonian, the son of Amminadab, the Agagite, son of Amminadab. Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian. I mean, these all go back to Edom. This is the direct connection to from Edom to Macedon, or the Macedonians, Alexander the Great, the strangers of Europe, that took and conquered Europe, which blessing only matches the blessing of Esau. I mean, this is obvious. The Great Red Dragon. Let's see what this is talking about. The Great Red Dragon in Revelations 12:3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. And behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. Verse 4. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it be born. So this same red dragon, now this is an allegory, but what is it an allegory of? A great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, wanting to devour a woman's child before as soon as it were born. Who does this remind you of? Because this allegory is an allegory of a somebody. So this great red dragon, Satan, right? Let's read the slaying of the infants, Matthew 2:13. It's the same thing as Herod. It's crazy. And when they departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth unto Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his brother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. Why? For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. So this same red dragon is an allegory for Herod seeking to destroy Christ. So that child is Christ. That's what it's an allegory of. Double to that which is. The secrets of wisdom. That's Job 11:6. Right? So Herod is the great red dragon in scriptures. But not just Herod, like I just said. It's the secrets of wisdom, which is double to that which is Herod in the Roman army. That's why that's that great red dragon. All right? So let's keep going. Herod the Great. Herod the Great was the son of a high-ranking official. Mind you, Herod's an Edomite. Herod the Great was the son of a high-ranking official in the Hasmonean dynasty. If you don't even know anything about the Hasmonean dynasty, Judas Maccabeus, which fought against the Greeks and took their identity back as the Israelites and the Jews and not Greeks, that's their dynasty. Right, which was ruling Palestine as an independent kingdom. He was an Idumean or Edomite. So Herod the Great was an Idumean or Edomite. Let's read this again. Herod the Great was the son of a high-ranking official in the Hasmonean dynasty, which was ruling Palestine as an independent kingdom. He was an Idumean or Edomite, a descendant of Esau. But there had been intermarriage between Jews and Edomites, and Herod publicly identified himself as a Jew. So when you read this, when you hear the scripture, Revelations 2:9 and 3:9, where it says that I know thy works and thy poverty, but thou art rich, and I know those that say they are Jews, but are not, but do lie, but are the synagogue of Satan. I make the synagogue of Satan to bow down and kiss your feet. Roughly paraphrasing. That is talking about them and the people who live in the land of Israel today. The Jewish people, the fake people, fake Jews, right? Publicly identified himself as a Jew, although he was not faithful to observe the Jewish law. I mean, and he wasn't. He didn't keep the law because he sought to kill the Jews' Messiah. But he was a Jew. I mean, not that the actual Israelites didn't, but this dude, he had no reason to. At least them, they was haters. Our people, they was hating after him. This dude wanted to kill him as soon as he be born. You know why? Because he wanted the power to stay in that of Rome. Let's keep going. The great red dragon. Oh yeah, and this is the photo of him to the bottom middle of the screen. The great red dragon, Satan, Revelation 12:9. And the great red dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. So the great red dragon, which is a similitude of or a parable or an allegory for the Roman Empire and Herod, is called the devil and Satan. So don't think the devil and Satan is simply just a spiritual demon. No, it's a people. And when they look at, when they call dragons, people dragons or animals or likeness of animals in the scriptures, it's usually talking about nations of people. And it says that in Daniel 7 as well, when it says that these nations are, these beasts are nations, are kings, right? So the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. Did the spiritual demon Satan deceive the whole world, or did the so-called white man deceive the whole world? He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him, meaning his soldiers and his men of war. Revelation 20:7. And when the 1,000 years were expired, meaning that dark ages, the 1,000-year period in which Rome was shut up, Satan shall be loose out of his prison. He shall go out to deceive the nations. And that's what he did in the Renaissance. And today, what's going on right now, he's deceived the whole world which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog. So, hold up. Now we're about to clear something up. I just proved to you that that this same Satan is the great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. That's Herod, which I just showed you was an Idumean. Then I just showed you is the Roman Empire, right? Which I showed you earlier that conquered that aren't the true inhabitants of the Etruscans and Minoans or the land of Europe, right? I just showed you how they conquered those people and took their land. I showed you how they took Spain. I showed you how they took Greece. And now it says right here that they lived in a land which is in Europe, which is Gog and Magog, which is what we'll call Russia. People call Russia and the land of Midwestern Eastern Europe. To gather together to battle, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea, which is the children of Israel. So they gather them together, the children of Israel. But these are white people. Like, that's the thing. It's crazy. I just openly proved to you that the Edomites. I just proved to you that the Romans aren't the true inhabitants of Europe. So you can't use them to say that white people inhabit Europe. I just showed you the Greeks aren't the true inhabitants of Europe through the Etruscan wars for the Romans and the Battle of Coronea for the Greeks. And I showed you that how Edom got into Europe. Right? So let's read. Why is it called the Great Red Dragon? Ever wonder why? Genesis 25:25. And the first came out red all over, like a hairy garment. And they called his name Esau. So Esau came out red all over like a hairy garment. He's not coming out red and hairy. He's coming out red all over his body like that of a hairy garment. Not it's a similar. It's similar. It's a simile. Simile uses something like using like or as. That's how you compare two things. That's what a simile is, right? Like someone says you're as dark as night, it doesn't mean you have stars on you. No, you mean you're dark. You look dark skinned, right? And they called his name Esau. So Esau is red all over like a hairy garment. You're dark like a hairy garment. I mean you're red like a hairy garment. It's a similitude. It's not calling him. He's not calling him hairy in that context, at least. In this context, it's not calling like he didn't. There's nothing that says he came out the womb hairy, red and hairy. It just says he came out the womb red. Also, people like to compare that and say how King David had this is the same word, which means ruddy in the Hebrew as King David. Well, King David wasn't called red like unto a hairy garment. This is where context would supersede etymology. Exodus 25:5. And ram skin dyed red, and badger skin, and shittim wood. This is ram skin dyed red to the bottom right of the corner. It's the same. It's the same color in which they would use at the Roman Empire, and it's what ram skin. It's what they would use for the tabernacle, things like that. This is the same color that they would describe Esau come out the womb as, red like a hairy garment. Let's keep going. Here's another one. You have Hadrian, king of Edom. Hadrian is an emperor of Rome, the son of Emperor Trajan, if I'm not mistaken. So let's hear what sources say he looks like, or he was. Midrash Tenkuma, mid-first millennium CE, takes this a step further and connects Edom with the Emperor Hadrian, who put down the Bar Kokhba revolt. Right? If you don't know what the Bar Kokhba revolt, the Israelites revolted and it killed a lot of Israelites. And this is the account of Hadrian. Warsaw Ed Bereshit 7. After Hadrian, king of Edom, this is to the right, after Hadrian, king of Edom, conquered the world, he returned to Rome and said to his officers, I want you to make me a god, since I have conquered the world. They said to him, but you have not yet established your rule over his God's city and his house. He went and succeeded and destroyed the temple, exiled Israel, and returned to Rome. He said to them, I have now destroyed his house and burned his temple and exiled his people. Make me a god. And if you sometimes so this is historically accurate, because Every time the temple has been destroyed, it's been by the hands of Edom. Always. The Edomites always destroyed the temple. You have First Ezra 4 and was it 4:45, 4:46, where they said that the Edomites destroyed the temple. You have Psalms 137 on down, where it says that the Edomites said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof, where they destroyed the temple. You have the Greeks, which are Edomites, that destroyed it, which I just proved where it has a direct lineage from the Edomites that destroyed the temple. And the Romans did the same thing. And look at the Romans being called Edom. So Edom has always destroyed the temple. And they considered it, if you did this thing, then you were considered a god. It's crazy. This is crazy. Let's keep going. Antonius in the place of Edomites in the world to come. Think about this. Antoninus in the place of Edomites in the world to come. So the next world to come, what lot is going to hold? Is going to befall the Edomites. The metaphor of Rome as Esau was not limited to Hadrian or even to the Romans who antagonized the rabbis. Even those Roman officials who were beloved of the rabbis are still spoken of as descendants of Esau in rabbinic literature. So they, no matter what, they, even unbiased, they were considered Edomites, right? According to one Talmudic legend, which I don't believe in the Talmud, but for historic records, yeah, I'll look into it. For instance, Antoninus, probably a loose reference to Hadrian's successor, Antonius Pius, worries that as a descendant of Esau, he will not be saved. This is B. Avoda, Zara 10b, trans Sepharia with adjustments. So just understand, he feels as though Antonius Pius, who they say is Antonius Pius, worries that because he's a descendant of Esau, he won't be saved. Interesting. Antoninus said to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, will I enter the world to come? Rabbi says, the Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said to him, yes. Antoninus said to him, but isn't it written, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau? Obadiah 1:18. And this is how you know that this is funny. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi answered, this refers to those who behave like Esau. Bullcrap. It doesn't say that, because even in Romans 9:11, it says that before the child being born, neither having done neither good or evil, that the promise of election might stand. Pretty much the Most High chose the people based off of the fact that he wanted to. Not of him that willeth or him that runneth, but God that calleth. So the Most High, and then as it says, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. So we understand that this is something that they couldn't do anything about. And even in Hebrews is it 12:16, where it says that Esau saw repentance but was rejected, though he sought it carefully with tears. So I mean, it's really just any way you play it, they have no lot in the world to come, except for being servants. In this legend, Antoninus identifies himself as a descendant of Esau and expresses his concern to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi that this will block his entry into the world to come. Since he reads the verse like the rabbis, the eradication of the descendants refers to the next world. It's crazy. Rabbi Yehuda assures Antoninus that this prediction applies only to descendants of Esau who act in a sinful manner of Esau and does not apply to Esau's righteous descendants. But the scripture says he was rejected, and then the scripture says that this was done before both children were born. But I like to grab a scripture. I was just about to grab something. Oh, let's grab 2 Ezra 69. It says this in the book of 2 Ezra 7:69. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So like he said, he was correct. Esau is the end of the world, of that world, but Jacob is the beginning of the next world that comes. So let's keep going. I think this is it. But this is the works cited page. There's a lot of information you want to look into. Lord willing, this is edifying in the spirit, man. Keep looking. I have 4 works cited pages. This is a lot of research. It took me a long time to get or to look into. Right. So with that, I would give all honor and glory to the Most High God Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, who the Word of across Jesus Christ, whose name is Yahweh Shai in the Hebrew. I would like to bid everybody strong shalom, man. Stand strong in these last days. Keep the law, statutes, and commandments. Comfort such as more, and now renounce corruption. With that, I would give you a strong shalom. Kwame Shalom.